Hey, beautiful soul. You're listening to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast, your weekly dose of fertility wisdom. I'm your host, Dr. Katie Wood. I'm a barefoot mama bear, pharmacist, and integrative fertility coach. This is your go-to podcast for all things to naturally nourish your fertility, embody womb healing, and reclaim your feminine power to accelerate your path to pregnancy. My expert guests and I will be having intentional conversations to discuss the many facets of a thriving, fertile foundation, natural wellness, and how we grow and transform as women on our journey to motherhood. So let's dive in, shall we? Hello and welcome to Rising into Mindful Motherhood. In this episode, I'll be talking with Leah Drew, a trauma-informed mind-body healing guide, speaker, and host of the Mindful Evolution podcast. Her mission is to empower others with the awareness and tools needed to optimally support their physical, mental, and emotional health and healing. And I absolutely love this next part in her bio. So Leah helps others turn their wounds into wisdom and pain into power so they can catalyze their healing and growth, enhance their relationships, step into their fullest self-expression, and reclaim their quality of life. In this episode, we'll be diving into all things trauma healing, inner child healing, shadow work, feminine embodiment through the lens of fertility. So welcome, Leah. I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. She is in Costa Rica right now, so I absolutely love that. And I'd love to just jump right in and kind of quickly touch on how this healing work came to be in your life.
Yeah. First of all, thank you for having me, Katie. I'm so excited that we're here and we're finally getting able to connect and bring some value and some just have some awesome conversation because I think a lot of people are in similar shoes as maybe where I was when I started this healing journey. And I was just feeling so overwhelmed by life. I was feeling so stressed. I was unfulfilled. I was unhappy. I was navigating a lot of chronic physical pain, mental and emotional pain and challenges. And I just was like, I felt like the whole weight of the world was on my shoulders. And I knew that there was more. I knew that I could have a life without pain. I knew I could have a life without all the emotional and mental challenges. I knew I could have a life without all the emotional dysregulation that I was experiencing. And like more than anything, I wanted to feel so grounded. And I wanted relationships that were like filling me up versus draining me. Like we all, I'm sure, have an understanding of like those energy vampires in life. And I just was so tired of that happening in family, in friendships, in relationships. And so I really got to a place where I was fed up with it. And, you know, sometimes we have to hit ground zero before we actually start to climb up the ladder, per se. And I got there. I had some really scary mental and emotional. I'd say I faced myself in a quite a scary way in the mirror, mentally and emotionally. And it was at that point where I realized that I have the opportunity to create change and I'm the creator of my life. And that's when I dove into the physical body, navigating my physical pain. And then I started to understand that I need to look deeper in my body. It's not just about movement and biomechanics. I need to look at my organs and my inflammation and how my body's actually functioning. And I'm sure many women who are tuning in can understand this as they're working to conceive. Like it's really important to think about your organs, how well they're functioning, making sure that there is a really healthy foundation within your body to bring life into the world. And in order to do that, your world internally gets to be really happy and healthy first. And then I started understanding how emotions and trauma influence physical pain, influence chronic disease, influence the expression of symptoms. And that's when I started putting all of these together into this mind body connection and understanding that physical, mental, emotional, and energetic impact that everything in the environment around us has on our being, on our bodies, on our temples. And like women are so powerful and we have the most incredible bodies that get to bring these literally we birth humanity into the world. Like how freaking awesome are we?
Yeah.
We get to treat our bodies with the love and kindness and respect and gratitude that it's so worthy of. And once you start to do that, you start to step into your power, and like your whole life starts to change when you own your power and you see your worth, and you can honor that every single day.
I love everything you just said. And I feel like, everyone's experience is different, but that like rock bottom that you described, I feel that that's where a lot of women go and they hit rock bottom, especially when they've been trying to conceive for so long and maybe they've tried IUI or IVF multiple cycles and it didn't work and they really just lose themselves and become so disconnected. And I think that fertility and preconception in and of itself is like this beautiful like portal vortex where you can really dive in and experience that power that you were describing. Like women, like we are just badasses, and like you said, we birth humanity. We can bring in children from the spirit realm to the physical earth realm. I feel like we don't even give ourselves the credit that we deserve, and society really kind of dims our light in a sense, and just so many beautiful things. So I love that your story has brought you here and you look glowing and so happy right now. So I think obviously whatever it is you've been doing has really, really changed your life. So now it looks like you're doing this work to help others as well, correct?
Yeah, and I appreciate you offering that reflection that I'm glowing because first of all, I love talking about this and it does really light me up. And it's this is a really beautiful reminder. It's the only podcast I have yet to record while in Costa Rica, and just it brings me so much love and fulfillment. And that's one of the things that I always work with women on is you are badass goddesses, queens that can literally create anything your heart desires. And society doesn't teach us how to connect with ourselves, as you mentioned. It actually teaches us to be disconnected, and it can be really frustrating when you hit ground zero and you're like, oh my god, I'm miserable, I'm unhappy, I don't know what to do. And there's not a whole lot of like holistic guidance from the general Western medical community, right, that's helping us through chronic situations and chronic care to help guide us home to ourselves. Like we're not taught how to do that growing up. And it requires you to listen to your body to understand when you're dysregulated, to understand when your body's out of harmony. And coming back to what you mentioned, like you complimented me in me glowing this morning. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like this trip has been a really, really hard experience for me. It's been incredibly dysregulating. It's been triggering AF. It has been full of really intense challenge and suffering. And, I'm really grateful for the self regulation tools that I have in my life, the things that I've learned over the years, because I've learned how to support myself through all the chaos, through all the challenge, through all the suffering, through all the darkness. And something I've been talking about a lot this week is, as humans, we want this love and we want this abundance and we want this beauty and we want this light and we want this gratitude. We want these freaking incredible experiences and we want to expand into those experiences. But the thing is, we're on a spectrum. And so as you expand in one on that one end of all the beauty and all the light and all the incredible experiences, you also expand on the other end and you get to learn how to hold the capacity for both, not just the beautiful and the light and the incredible things, but also the darkness and the suffering and the pain and the challenge. And as you start to come home to yourself, learn how to listen to your body, and as you start to really learn how to connect with you and self-regulate and prioritize your self-care and your self-worth, what starts to happen is you start to realize that you can hold all of it, that you trust yourself in your ability to support your way through the entire experience, even the darkness, even the challenge, even the pain, even the suffering. And you know that on the other side of that, there's more expansion on the other end, and that love and that abundance and that gratitude. And so, thank you for that reflection because it feels good to receive as I've been in the depths of some really challenging experiences in Costa Rica. But again, it's like coming back to the point here, it's we aren't taught how to connect with ourselves and we aren't taught how to self-regulate and we aren't taught really how to support ourselves through some of these really challenging things that are inevitably going to happen as human beings,
Mm.
right? Whether that's chronic disease, whether that's chronic pain, whether that's not being able to conceive or having challenges with conceiving. You can conceive. It's just a matter of getting your body to the place where it gets to be able to nurture another life. And you get to nurture your life first in order to do that.
Mm.
And we are raised in a society of people that are people pleasing everywhere around us. What can I do for you? We're not being taught how to think about, what do I need for me? What does my body, what does my mind need? And I just appreciate that reflection.
Yeah, at least two things I want to touch on there is definitely holding the duality of both light and dark and happy and sad and just all of those, like the range of emotions. And one thing that I've learned from one of my mentors is one isn't better than the other.
Yep.
That's just like what we've been taught. Being happy isn't necessarily a better emotion than being like sad or angry or any of those things. So really being able to hold that duality, which I feel as women, we have been like created to do that, right? Our follicular phase, very energetic, more upbeat, more sensual, more creative. And then being in that luteal phase, energy is getting lower, kind of deeper, darker, being more introspective and things like that. So we are literally
Absolutely.
like the best human to be able to do that. And then I just want to go back to the very beginning. And I think that this is just a beautiful reminder to have is even someone like yourself, just because you do this healing work, that doesn't mean that it's oh, check that off the list. Okay, I healed this. I've regulated my nervous system. I never have to revisit that again. No, like it's like a daily thing for me at least. Like I'm at home working on my business with a 4-year-old, like lots of triggering things happening, right? Being an entrepreneur, motherhood, it is a daily thing that you have to be able to work through. And like you said, you had the tools to really help ground yourself in kind of the more challenging experiences that you are having in Costa Rica. And I think that, like you had mentioned, a lot of us don't have those tools, and society does not empower us, definitely not, and they don't educate us to be able to do that. I just
Yeah.
really wanted to touch on both of those beautiful things. And I would really love to help you describe or define for the audience, because I know for me, I feel like my really deep healing journey started in 2020, 2021, and I had no idea what trauma was. Like in my mind, it was like, okay, I was never sexually abused, I was never physically abused, not even necessarily verbally abused either. And I feel like a lot of times that's where our minds go, like the really kind of severe forms of trauma. So I had no idea. I was working with a coach at the time, and that's a lot of the things that she focused on, and I felt completely lost. Oh, I don't even know what that is. Do I even have any trauma? What does that look like? So I would love to kind of hear your reflection on that.
Yeah, totally. And I just also, before we shift into that, I wanna say I love how you brought this aspect of duality into the feminine cycles, into the menstrual cycle. I think that I've actually never had a conversation about that duality within that, and you're so right. We do have both of those intensities there. And the other thing I wanted to add here is, I have this joke now with my friends where it's like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. This is so unpleasant. I don't want it. I don't like it, but I want it. Give it to me. Give me more of it, because it's so transformative, and it's such a big catalyst. And this leads me into the triggers, because your triggers are as well. Like, your triggers are your greatest healers. Your triggers are your greatest catalysts in life. And I hate to break it to anyone listening, but like, it's inevitable. You can do as much healing as you want, and you're still going to get triggered. So, how do you navigate it? How do you handle it? Because it's not about controlling what happens to us. We're never going to be able to control what happens to us, but we can control how we react and how we respond to it. And that's where all the self regulation and the self care tools really come in. And coming to your question, like what exactly is trauma? There's so many different forms of trauma. Let's talk about it in like big T versus little T trauma. And so big T trauma is really what we think about around sexual assault or physical abuse or like a really traumatic near death experience, right? Those are like really big T traumas. Little T traumas affect your body in the same way. They may not be as intense as an experience, but your body reacts and responds the same exact way. And just to put this in perspective, your nervous system, your organs, everything internally responds the same way to both of these situations. One, you getting in an argument with your child. Two, you literally being chased by a bear down the street. Like your body responds the same exact way. And having compassion for yourself and not comparing, because the moment that you start to compare, you actually start to take away a lot of the power that exists in the experiences, a lot of the transformation that exists in your experience. You cannot compare your experience to anyone else. And even if you try, at the end of the day, when we come down to the cellular level, your body is responding the exact same way as their body is. So something to think about. And when we talk about these little T traumas, they can be like small little stressors, right? Getting in the argument with a spouse or having frustration with your child drawing all over the walls or maybe having some smaller trauma around things that maybe your doctor has said to you as you've been trying to conceive, right? Words can leave imprints as well. And the way that I like to describe little T trauma is we have this thing called a neural edge. And a neural edge is like this wall or this ceiling where our body feels safe within. And once we pass that neural edge, that's when our body starts to shift into fight or flight. And you can work to raise that ceiling and expand that ceiling as you start to dance along the line of that ceiling, right? Pushing it a little bit, noticing and tuning in when, okay, I'm slightly past my neural edge. I'm a little bit dysregulated, but I can now use my tools to come back into my safe space. And as you start to work with that, you can actually start to expand your capacity for experiencing stress. And these little T's come about when we really surpass those ceilings and don't have as much awareness and maybe don't have the self-care or self-regulation tools at the time when we did surpass that ceiling, and have the ability to bring ourselves back into that safe space. And so those little T's I like to describe are like that moment when you like go a little too far past that ceiling. And your body remembers all of this. And this is where somatics and embodiment practices and self regulation tools and trauma work are so important because your body remembers everything. So almost, I don't know why I'm getting this like visual because we're talking to a lot of women here who likely have their own children or are going to have their own children. And you see like, I see the woman, or anyone cleaning the floor and then the kids going through and like getting all their cute little dirty fingerprints and footprints like all over the floor, right? And maybe you buy a new rug and all of a sudden all the dirt's starting to collect in the rug and like it stays there until you do something with it, until you wash it, until you clean it. And your body is the same way. Your body remembers everything, all the little T's, all the big T traumas. And until we start to work with it and start to bring safety to the body, tune in and listen to the body, and get curious. What's your body holding on to? I always say your symptoms and your pain, your discomfort, your dysfunction, they're messages from your body to your body asking for more love and more attention. And when you can bring more love and more attention to your big T and little T traumas, you have the ability to transmute that energy, to rid that energy from the body. And it doesn't necessarily have to be trauma from this life. Especially when we talk about conceiving, it's so important to look at the trauma that not only you've had, but the trauma that your parents and your grandparents have had as well. Looking at three generations is super, super important in epigenetics, which is the study of your environment and how your environment influences the physical expression of symptoms. This might look like your current ability to get pregnant or not get pregnant. A lot of that can be due to family trauma, due to trauma that you've experienced in your life that has gone unresolved or unsupported, unloved. And so, as you start to work with this trauma that's trapped in the body, you start to let go of all this weight. And like some simple practices that you can do are like, there's so many, but dancing is one of my favorites. Dancing, somatic shaking, toning, vocalizing, singing. There's mirror work. There's so many things that you can start to do, like journaling about the experience to get the energy that's trapped in your body out. Because at the end of the day, that is all that trauma is. They are memories imprinted in your body as energy. And
Mhm.
energy can be transmuted, it can be shifted, and energy can't be destroyed, right? It can just be shifted from one form into another. And for anyone that might be feeling weighed down by trauma or past experiences, I just want to invite you into the thought shift that it's just energy. And I want to invite you into the question of how does that energy in your body that you're feeling that's weighing you down, how does it want to be moved? How does it want to be held? And how does it want to be supported? Thinking about the same way that you would hold and support your child.
Mm. Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Oh, so many things that I want to touch on. So, going back when you were mentioning like physical symptoms, so kind of looking at this from the woman's health perspective. So PMS symptoms, like in the fertility space, hormone imbalances, PCOS, endometriosis, like these are all really, really big factors that are coming up that are really hindering people's ability to get pregnant. But like you were saying, that's your body's way of speaking to you. And likely it was probably showing up for you in maybe a little bit of discomfort or other things, other ways, but we were too busy to notice.
Yep.
So then, the signs or the sensations get louder and louder and louder until it's like fully manifested into cysts on your ovaries or endometriosis and just all of these things. And it's really just a product of your body trying to speak with you. And unfortunately, in the fast-paced world that we live in, we're not listening or we're just extremely disconnected. Like for me, I was on birth control for 13 years before I started trying to conceive. And then I expected to stop my birth control and get pregnant right away. That did not happen. But I essentially completely turned off my natural cycle, my menstrual cycle for 13 years. And I'm just
Mm-hmm.
expecting it to be like, okay, wake back up like in one cycle, let's get pregnant. It doesn't work that way. So I think taking this as an opportunity to come back home to yourself and not making yourself wrong or broken or blaming or shaming your body for really trying to communicate with you. And then another thing that I want to touch on is the fact that you brought up the epigenetics, looking at your parents, your grandparents, that transgenerational trauma. And because I don't know if you know this, or in case the listeners don't know this, when your grandmother was carrying your mother, like your mother, like her eggs, you were basically developing when your mother was in utero. So anything that your grandmother experienced is going to have an imprint and an effect on you as well. Maybe your grandparents were immigrants and they experienced famine or war or just so many other different things, and all of those things can kind of drip down into your lineage. And I like to say that a lot of us are like in this beautiful awakening right now. And I think that anyone who has felt like a pull or an attraction to the work that you do or the work that I do, it's because you are ready to release a lot of this generational trauma for yourself, for your ancestors, and for your future children, like future generations.
your kids, your grandkids. Yeah, I immediately knew exactly what fact you were going to drop when you started to say that, which is why I was dancing because it's so cool. And that's why, so many people are like, why? I don't want to look at my trauma. Why should I? It's in the past, right? Brush under the rug. Don't look at it. And it's like, because if you don't, you're going to pass it on to your children and to your children's children. And so, in my opinion, it's your responsibility, if you choose to take it, to support the health of your kids and your grandkids by choosing to support the health of yourself. And it all comes back to you get to lead as an example. And like to lead as an example is to, in my opinion, listen to your body, listen to those whispers, support yourself, heal yourself so that people in the future don't have to deal with the things that you didn't deal with. I
Mm-hmm.
remember when I started going through my healing journey, like I was a little frustrated. I was like, why am I doing this work for my mom? Why am I doing this work for my grandmother? And then I'm like, I get to, one, and two, they didn't have the tools.
Yeah.
They didn't have the tools, right? And it's you can't be angry with yourself. Well, you can, but it's not fair for you to be angry with yourself in the past for not acting a certain way or not showing up in a certain way when you didn't have the tools to do it. That's not fair. That's not unconditional love for yourself in every single step of the way, in every single step of the journey. And yeah, that, like you said, like that unresolved trauma, and I love to talk about this because a lot of people I find in the energy world have a more difficult time discussing this and expressing this. But the way that symptoms start to arise is because, like we talked about, trauma is memories. Trauma is experienced in the body as energy, right? It is energy moving through your body. And when you have lower vibrational energies, or let's just say like dysregulated energies, because we know that a dysregulated energy feels very different than a regulated energy. When those energies are coursing through your body and you don't actually work with them and release them and transmute them, they stay. And what starts to happen is that energy starts to bring your body into a more stress state. You can feel it, right? Like when someone walks in the room unhappy versus when someone walks into the room super happy, you feel that in your body. And so that trauma and that energy that is now trapped in your body, what starts to happen is it starts to rev up your nervous system. And when your nervous system's revved up, your organs can't function optimally. Your cells can't divide properly, right? Like you go into fight or flight and you go into survival mode, and your body cannot heal in survival mode. And the longer you're in survival mode, where all these organs and all the functions of your body are turned down, now you cannot optimally fight off infection. You cannot optimally support all of the functions that every single one of your organs are meant to carry out, which is how we then start to end up with the symptoms, the PMS, the cysts, right? The pain, like all of these symptoms that you were addressing before, they arise because energetically speaking, the trauma prevents our body from being able to function in an optimal state. And
Mm-hmm.
that starts to lead to all of the symptoms arising. It's like the dirt starting to trickle onto the rug and get caught in the rug and on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's stuck there and it's going to affect, your natural flow of energy in your body. And it's really just like calling out to you to look within and to heal and to release that trauma that has been there. So another thing that you had mentioned, and I really, really love this piece, especially in the fertility space, is I don't remember your exact words, but basically mothering yourself through experiences the way that you would your child. And I think for anyone who's listening, whether you have a child or not, or you're trying to conceive and you've been struggling, I feel that you should still be able to tap in and visualize. Like you can close your eyes, put your hand on your heart, and just visualize, how do you imagine yourself as a mother to your child? Put them in any scenario. Maybe they're crying because they're upset because a toy broke or something like that. How would you show up for them? How would you hold space for them and mother them? And that's really in the same light how you should be mothering yourself. And I think that this is a beautiful segue into talking about inner child healing, because that was also like a topic that I was so new to and naive to, like inner child, talk to my inner child. What does that even mean? And now I understand and it makes so much sense. And that's why I think that this fertility preconception phase is just beautiful because that's the role that you're wanting to enter in. So I think what's so amazing about it is you can start doing that with yourself right now. So I would love to hear your take on inner child healing and what that could look like for anyone who's trying to conceive.
Absolutely. You know, as you mentioned, like it starts with you. You can only love others to the extent to which you love yourself. You can only care for others to the extent to which you care for yourself, right? You can only show up for others and experience pleasure with others to the extent to which you show up for yourself and experience pleasure within yourself. And so when we talk about inner child healing, when we're healing from trauma in any way, shape, or form, because we all have it's all a part of every single one of our lives, little t and big T. Some people may have more little t, some people may have more big T, but regardless, it's a part of all of us. And inner child healing is so important because, as I mentioned earlier, it's so important to have compassion for yourself in the past when you couldn't show up for yourself, when you didn't have the tools to support yourself. And so, really, what inner child healing is being able to go back to those moments where you were suffering, where you were challenged, where you were experiencing pain, where you were dysregulated, and being able to reparent and bring support to that part of you that didn't have the tools at the time. And as you do that, you start to, it's like the crying baby, right? The more care you bring to the crying baby, the less the baby's going to scream and cry, hopefully, right? There might be moments where the baby's going to continue crying and screaming, but generally speaking, the more care and support and safety you bring to the crying baby, the more calm the baby's going to become with time. And the same thing happens. It's like these parts of you, we have all these different parts. These parts of you crave to be supported, the ones that went through the challenging and traumatic experiences in the past. And so with inner child healing, you can go back and you can bring more love. You can talk to this inner child. You can tell this inner child the things that this inner child deeply wanted to hear. Maybe all this inner child wanted was to be told, I love you. I got you. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be sad. Allow your emotions to allow yourself to feel your emotions. It's okay to feel. You know, I remember for me as a child, oftentimes I would express my feelings and my emotions, and I was told that that's not right. And it's not a matter of what happened, it's a matter of how you felt through what it is that did happen. And so I love working with my clients to navigate some of this work, some of this inner child healing, because it prevents that part of you from wanting to rear its head into your everyday life. I'm reading a book right now for any women who are listening. I highly recommend this book. It's called Pussy, A Reclamation by Mama Gina. And it is such a powerful book and helps you really connect with the power that the pussy holds and the creation that exists as you connect with pussy. And one of the things that she said was the more she connected with her inner bitch, the less her inner bitch showed up to the party.
Hmm.
And so she has this thing called swamping, where she literally put on a trash bag and dressed in like the most grungy clothes she possibly could, because that's what she was feeling. And she just let herself fully express it. And she danced around her living room, swamping in trash bags. And on the days that she was feeling super bitchy, she like wore the shirt that I can't remember exactly what the shirt said, but it was like something around like being in her bitchy self or something like that. And she just allowed herself to fully express that which she was feeling. And as she started to do this, she was like, yeah, like that inner bitch didn't have any reason to come out anymore because she was like not feeling bitchy anymore.
I love that.
And so I think it's just a beautiful opportunity through inner child healing to work with the roadblocks and the challenges and the struggles that continue to come up as themes in your present day world by bringing love, bringing support, bringing care to those parts of you from the past that didn't have the tools, that didn't receive the support, that didn't receive the love, and that didn't receive the care.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think a lot of times we just don't realize how much certain events actually do affect us. And when I started doing this work, I was at a retreat in Florida. And one of the things that like flashed in my mind, it was I was in elementary school, like maybe fourth or fifth grade. And I was playing the violin and I had a concert, and my dad traveled a lot for work and he was supposed to come. And he, for whatever reason, work related, he wasn't able to come. And I think he sent me flowers or like a plant or something. But in that moment, like when I went back to it, like I was so sad and just like brokenhearted. It can be something as simple as that. And you think, you don't think twice about it, but really that can have an effect, like a sense of abandonment really was kind of like the core wound that left for me. So it can be as simple as that. That's, it's kind of wild. And so just being open and curious, like you had mentioned earlier, and definitely compassionate and zero judgment because we do the best that we can with the tools that we have at that time. And I think the beautiful part is that we can actually kind of go back to that moment and re-nurture ourselves and remother ourselves and give us what we needed so we can heal and move forward. So I know that you have a freebie for the audience, the Awareness Seeker Workshop. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So awareness, in my opinion, is key in all of this. It's key in connecting more deeply with your mind, with your body. It's key in creating change in your life. It's key in healing from past trauma. And so the Awareness Seeker Workshop is a beautiful opportunity, an experience, I like to say, because all of the things in my world are an experience, to really dive deeper into bringing awareness to the things that are currently holding you back, the things and the places where you keep getting stuck. And like through building awareness there, you actually have the opportunity to step a little bit to the side and start to implement optimal support so that you can create change in the areas that don't feel good and that are creating stagnancy, resistance, or just like challenge in your world. And so the Awareness Seeker Workshop is here to support you and seeing the things that maybe you haven't been shining a light on, to shine light on them, and then to start to create and implement like effective, supportive, and like changes that don't feel crazy overwhelming so that you can just start to take one little step to the side and then continue walking forwards on your path. And
Mhm.
so if you're looking to just build awareness around where you can implement changes to start to create shift and change in your life, in the way that you feel, in your ability to conceive, then I invite you to tune into the workshop and would love to hear your feedback and your experience with it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. So definitely go check that out. I think that it'll really help tie together everything that we talked about today. And it sounds like you'll learn some more tools and things like that that you can start utilizing in your everyday life. So tell us about your podcast, the Mindful Evolution podcast, and where the audience can learn more and connect with you.
Totally. I hang out a lot on Instagram. I do a lot of free things. I go live a whole bunch, offer as much value as I possibly can, holding space, answering your questions. You can find me on Instagram at Mind Body with Leah, and my podcast, the Mindful Evolution podcast. It's such a passion project for me. I love it so much as I love this conversation with you. I love just bringing other people in to add incredible value. And my big thing is bringing more mindfulness to to the human race so that we can evolve in a more conscious way, so that we can have more tools to support ourselves, so that we're not finding ourselves at ground zero, having no idea what to do to support ourselves and to help us with moving forward. And so the Mindful Evolution podcast, my intention here is to bring as much awareness into your world, help you add tools to your toolbox, and help you be a more impactful leader in your life so that other people can look at you and be like, wow, she's doing that. She's feeling that. She's experiencing that. I want that too. And so we touch on a whole range of different topics, anything and everything that would be helpful for you to create change and start living a life that's happier, healthier, and fulfilling all the desires that you have in your world.
Love it. Yeah, definitely go check that out. I checked out your podcast page earlier today and it definitely looks really cool. Your last episode was about your psilocybin experience. Definitely going to check that one out.
So good. The last two episodes actually were all on plant medicine. The most recent was psilocybin with my best friend Barrett, and the one before that was all on using cannabis in a very conscious manner, and that was also recorded with one of my best friends, Ryan Sprague. Yeah, they great, great, great podcasts recently, and I keep going back and listening to them, and I'm like, oh, these are so good.
Oh, I'll have to listen to that one too. I work in a medical marijuana dispensary in New York. So
Ooh,
that's like a part-time gig that I do. So I'll definitely have to listen to both. So love that.
you'll love them.
So I'd love to just have you share anything that comes up for you, like any closing thoughts and words of encouragement for ladies who are on their journey to motherhood and are just really experiencing like the deep depths of lots of self-doubt and frustration and just anything that you have to offer for them.
The first thing that comes up is that you are so worthy of everything that you desire. And your body has the ability to heal itself. It has the ability to create anything that you desire. And just again, coming back to what's your body saying to you? What are these whispers that that are happening? What are they saying to you? And how can you start to honor these whispers and pay more attention to your body? How can you bring more love to your body? Like, you are such an incredible goddess, and you have the ability to do anything you set your mind to, including create a child in your beautiful womb. And yeah, just like really wanting to invite the women listening to find more ways to connect with themselves. The ways that you want someone else to treat you, how can you treat yourself that way? The ways that you want someone else to love you and to support you, how can you love and support yourself that way? And how can you create the most incredible experience within yourself so that the outer world can learn from you and match that? That's what's coming through for me.
Beautiful. Thank you. I love that. Thanks so much for being here, Leah, and from Costa Rica. It was a beautiful, beautiful conversation that I could probably go on all day long. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Katie. It was such a pleasure. And thank you, ladies, for listening.
Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rising into Mindful Motherhood podcast. If this episode resonated with you or gave you an aha moment, stop what you're doing right now and write a review. This simple act of kindness helps me get this podcast out to connect with as many women as I possibly can. I also have a special offer. If you send me a screenshot of your review, I will take $250 off one of my premium coaching containers. Let me know what resonated with you the most and why. So connect with me in my free Facebook community or tag me on Instagram. You'll find both listed below. Thanks again from the bottom of my heart for tuning in to this episode, and I'll see you next time.